Hey, welcome back to the NFL Draft edition of the Bebonos podcast, BBK 134. This is your host, Brian Bullock, and with me once again, Mr. Seth Burn. Thank you once again for joining, Seth.
It is wonderful to be here, Brian. How are you doing
I'm
today?
doing great. I like this time of the year, the weather getting a little better, discussion of football once again. So can't really complain. How are you doing?
I am good. It was actually beautiful here last weekend, and actually I think 2 weeks ago as well. And now it's getting a little cold again. I think this is just the last bit of winter before it starts getting hot and then really hot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. There's only a few like really like enjoyable weeks of spring, um, overall.
yeah,
So, but yeah, make the best of it. But yeah, let's dive into the NFL
sure.
draft stuff. So yeah, we don't have any like huge like I didn't have any like off topic topics like last time. Although I guess I do have some, but nothing like a big theme or anything. But one of the things that I always wondered, and I don't think I ever really asked you about it, was the value of like mock drafts. So like everyone who creates NFL content it's almost required by law that they have some kind of mock draft that they do. Several versions of it. So when you've as you know over the years or even like have you ever found any value in any mock drafts whatsoever?
And my answer is, for the most part, no. There was one guy, Rick Goslin, I believe, in Texas, who he used to have at least some information. So his mock draft would have more signal than any other mock draft that I can remember.
Okay.
But for the most part, no, I don't put too much faith in mocks. And these days, there's just so many of them because people want clicks.
Yeah.
Having said that, there is something called grinding the mocks, which is kind of like the wisdom of crowds. And there might at least be some knowledge there in terms of what people are expecting, even if I don't think teams really care.
Yeah, and I think when people are doing mocks, like people have different motivations for mocks. I'm sure some of them are just like ranking the best players. Some of them don't even take into account, which is probably one of the more important things, is like the teams or the general managers, the owners' philosophies on picking players. You know, there's certain guys that you've followed football way longer than I have, so I'm sure you can attest to the fact that you know that there's going to be some guys that aren't going to be have no chance of being picked by somebody because of a certain character flaw or a certain characteristic or certain trait. Um,
And that goes both ways. I mean, when I was growing up, George Young ran the Giants, and his disciple, Bill Parcells, was coach. And they had the planet theory, where there's only a certain amount of people on this planet who are big enough, strong enough, and athletic enough to dominate in the trenches. So you knew that if you didn't meet their thresholds, they weren't going to look at you. But if you did, they would take you earlier than other teams would.
sure. Okay. All right. So yeah, going on to the next topic here. That was just kind of a brief, kind of intro topic that I wanted to go over. But
Hmm.
so now that we're like 3 years into, I guess it's post COVID. We're just kind of living with it now. But
Yeah.
but it's more so the age of the NIL slash transfer portal is kind of taken over the college game, and it obviously affects your processes with the draft. So, like, in what ways would you say the NIL and the transfer portal, like, how do they affect your approach going into the draft season?
So just on a data entry level, I've got to keep track of which teams players played on for which years. And that's a little bit of annoying.
Sure.
But the bigger thing is we're just seeing players stay in college until they're 23, 24, 25 years old. Like, I don't remember that being a common thing. I know, like, BYU on Utah used to have the players go on the missions and be 2 years older than they might otherwise be. And that was something you adjusted for. But now it's just with the COVID year and with NIL and a variety of other things, it's just we're seeing a lot more older players, and we're seeing with NIL players go back to school for an additional year when they would otherwise come out, like second-tier quarterback prospects. But what I'm actually concerned about isn't this generation of players. It's the players who get the snaps taken away from them, the next generation. And just I'm going to imagine this hypothetical example. You have a team which has a 25-year-old quarterback who gives you the best chance to win, but is not a serious pro prospect. And they have a 19-year-old kid who does have NFL potential, but the coach wants to win now, and so he doesn't get on the field. That is what we're going to see on a less extreme scale just across the sport.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I know that there's certain like football factories that it's, it's probably more common for guys to sit already. Like Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
the guy might sit 2 or 3 years before even he'll play like
You know what you're signing up for when
yeah,
you go to
exactly.
Alabama and you
But
play.
but but over but yeah, but you're talking on a larger scale across the
Mm-hmm.
entire college spectrum, not just because obviously Alabama's like you said, you know what you're getting into. You're playing, you're playing to sit a few years and then make a splash in that junior year and then get drafted.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so so in terms of your how like impacts your analysis, have you found anything to be problematic yet?
So I don't really care for player transfers at all. I don't view that as them being a mercenary or anything. They should do what's best for them. I do happen to like it when they step up in competition. So if you're playing outside of the Power Five and you transfer into the SEC or like the Big Ten or whatever else, I'm now going to get better data on you because I'm going to have you going up against tougher players and seeing if you can maintain or even improve on your level of performance. So that's something I do like to see. We might see a lot of that where the best players at smaller schools want to then swim in a bigger pond, as it were.
Yeah. So we mentioned age a few times already, and it's funny that I was looking through the outline from last year, and one of the last questions that was asked, I forgot who exactly, but somebody was asking about age, and it's funny that we've mentioned it so often, but now that it's such a topic, I know the answer to this, but I'm just going to ask it anyways, just to
Yeah.
but I'm guessing you're going to have to reevaluate like age more now in terms of evaluating prospects.
I have decided that I do not pay enough attention to age, and I need to fix that. I consider that a flaw in my game, as it were,
Okay.
because it matters. And with this happening now, with players staying just longer and longer, it's going to happen more often. So,
Sure.
yeah, I'm going to need to start adding that to more spreadsheets, as it were, so it's just more available and obvious to me.
Okay. All right. So the last one here, with in terms of this area here, or do you think there's going to be certain positions that are impacted more so than others by this later careers and later college careers, as you will. Um,
So my initial answer was edge rushers because that's a position where early success is more predictive of NFL success than later success, i.e. if you can start getting to the quarterback at age 19, that's more impressive than if you can start getting to the quarterback at age 22.
sure.
But upon further consideration, it really matters across the board. Like if you can succeed at any position at age 19, it's more impressive than 22. Just to, edge rusher is one of those situations where we've done more testing on it, we have more data on it, and it may have just simply been more obvious. It might even be more predictive. But like I care if like, well, one of the positions that's slow to develop is tight end. So if the light comes on at 22, you're still going to have to adjust to the NFL. And that's an additional leap you're going to have to make, and you have fewer years in your career to make that leap. So I think it's going to matter across the board. And again, age in our new era, in our new NAL era, is going to be something that's going to become just more relevant in general.
Okay. And so when I was talking to you off air, I did want to like pseudo surprise you with a topic.
Yeah,
It's
go ahead.
sort of related, um, but yeah. So this was it's related to the age thing, and I threw it together like a couple hours before the podcast here. It was basically coming up with the ages of all of the starting and potential starting quarterbacks. So I used the 5 rookies that are expected to be drafted as the first 5, and then there were a couple teams, Tampa, San Fran, and Tennessee, that I used a couple quarterbacks for because their quarterback situations are a little more unknown than the others. I just presumed that Washington would have Howell, so I didn't include Brissett in this data. But so I basically ranked. I basically just compiled all their date of births and their ages, and I was just curious if you knew what the average age um, of a quarterback was. If you could.
In the league itself,
Yeah.
I mean, if you take all 32 teams, my guess, assuming Brady is retired, we should lower it by a full year and a half. Um, Not quite, but close to that. It's just whatever. But I'm going to say 27.
Yeah, so I didn't in my data, since I threw it together really fast. I didn't include like point like 35 point blah blah. I
Yeah,
did basically the
yeah, but
age to start the 2023 season, um, and yeah, it was about 27 years old. The and like the middle number was 25. So that's like if you rank them all, that's like where 19 and 20 are. So basically, you're looking at the age of 25 as kind of like the average, not average, but like where you could expect where you can almost say a guy is a veteran, or like a guy is like still young, I guess. Um, so so yeah, what I was getting at was I was curious if you knew um, just using just thinking about it, where you think say Hendon Hooker would be in terms of that list of 38, where he would be in terms of the ages of all these quarterbacks. Like I mentioned, it's including 2 from various teams and 0 from Indy and Carolina, because I don't really have they're going to draft their starters. Um, so yeah,
so let me say the way I look at this is not how old you are when they draft you, which obviously matters, but let's say how old these guys would be when they're going to be trying to sign their second
sure.
contracts. And so Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud are going to be turning 22, I believe, during the season. With 5 years of control, they're going to be like 25, 26, 27 when they're looking at their second deals, which is fine. That's still pretty young looking at your second deal. Anthony Richardson is even younger. He's going to be turning 21 after the draft before the season.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be 24, 25, 26 whenever he's looking at a second deal. Will Levis, who there's talk about him going first, there's talk about him going second, there's talk about him going 4. He's going to turn 24 before the season.
Yep.
So he's going to be 28, 29 perhaps when he's looking at a second deal. Not a spring chicken at that point. But then you mentioned one specific name, Hendon Hooker. So I am skeptical that Hooker's going to go in the first round. So that's only 4 years of control. They can sign him after his third year, I believe. Re-sign him. Or might be second year, whatever it is. But he's going to turn 26, I want to say, in January.
Yes, correct.
So, like, he's going to be 30 before his second contract kicks in? Really?
Yeah. So
that's bullshit.
yeah. So he's actually right in the middle there. He's like just using the average age of like the possible starting quarterbacks this year. He's 19th out of 38, and that's like without taking an NFL snap. He's he's 2 years younger, or 2 years older than Lance, who's been in the league for 2 years. So I guess my point was also to kind of point out the ridiculousness, at least to me, of San Fran talking about possibly trading him when there's 2 guys that are in this draft that are actually older than him by like Levis is almost a year older than him. So I just to me, so yeah, that was kind of where I was getting at with that is that like, that it's you know it's a young man. Yeah, it's definitely like the age is younger than I thought, but I guess that's probably because so many of the older guys have dropped off recently, or retired, I should say. But but yeah,
Or been traded to the Jets.
that is true. And we can touch on that a little bit later. But yeah, so I just wanted to bring up the whole age thing there, just to kind of give some perspective of the quarterback position. And I feel like in terms of the Niners, I'm not really I like the position they're in. I guess I didn't understand. I still don't understand the rush to get rid of Lance, but I don't really. I think it's more just you know people just starting shit than actually.
I am skeptical that the 49ers are rushing to get rid of Lance for two reasons. First of all, their quarterbacks have gone down like the drummers from Spinal Tap. So I don't think they want to thin out their quarterback depth just in general. And second of all, the other thing you mentioned is he is still young. He still has the traits that they wanted. Like they see him in practice so that they know how close or how far he is to being fully NFL ready. But he's young and they still have 2 years of cheap control plus an additional year if they want it. My sense is he's still an asset that they would want to develop, even if they do feel like Purdy should be the number one guy and Darnold is the backup.
Okay, it was more of a pet peeve of mine that I wanted to bring up, kind of bring into perspective some of the ages and how especially with what we just discussed, we're gonna see that the average age of some of these quarterbacks possibly go up if the trend continues. We'll see, but okay, so let's get back on topic. So yeah, the next set of topics, there was a couple of tweets here that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
The first one here was a tweet from looks like Kevin Cole, and I'm not sure who he is.
He's a analyst type guy on Twitter.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. So yeah, I'll just basically read the tweet here. And say we've evolved past the days when physically less impressive quarterbacks such as Tom Brady and Drew Brees could just master the game on a mental level through repetitive live reps and practice time. And then you include some graphics here.
Yeah, I did for Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, and I actually should have also included a graphic for Bryce Young. But before I get to that, I just want to provide a little context. So he was replying to the Stephen Ruiz on Twitter, and they're talking about PFF Moo. The idea was that modern NFL quarterbacks are more traits driven than these. There's a bird outside my window. You hear the bird?
I did, yeah.
Cool. So you have Justin Herbert, who, by the way, is 6'6", not 6'1", like I said in the last pod. I have correction here. We have Mr. Top Right himself. You have Josh Allen. These guys are all tremendous athletes who developed into elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And the question is, what about these other guys who are a little smaller, but they put it in the work. They know ball. They can play ball. They've got good enough arm strength. Can they still dominate? Can they still win the league? And, well, my first thought is old man Tom Brady was still good enough to win a Super Bowl. Tom Brady, that was the least mobile in his career, the least athletic in his career, the least trait-driven, least of the physical traits anyway, and the most mentally prepared, as it were, perhaps. So if he's capable of winning the Super Bowl, and old man Manning, by the way, he didn't really qualify for the original tweet. He was like 6'5", whatever else. But like him in his most diminished capacity, and he was carried by the defense, but he won a Super Bowl. And just looking at Brock Purdy, he was Mr. Irrelevant. He was between 6 foot and 6'1", 212 pounds. he led the 49ers as a seventh-round pick to the NFC Championship game. Now, he had some things in his favor. He had Coach Shanahan, an offensive genius. He has tremendous offensive talent around him and tremendous defense. So that is the easiest of easy modes. Nonetheless, it's irrelevant. So, and Trey Lance, who was a third overall pick, they traded up for him. All the talent, all the athleticism, even if he didn't run the combine, he is now the backup, or even perhaps the backup to the backup. But that's one thought. The other thought is, who's expected to be number one overall in this year's draft? Bryce Young, a guy who's 5'10", under 200 pounds. Like, he's not a super freak. He's not in the mold of Mahomes or Allen or Herbert. Like, and even if he doesn't go one, he's going to go top 2 or top 5. So no, I don't buy that you can't get there by knowing how to play the game, quick mental processing, good enough arm. That guy can succeed in the NFL. Like the NFL clearly believes that kind of guy can succeed in the NFL. So, no, I'm not buying it at all.
Okay. All right. So the next tweet was, looks like Tony Pauline. And this was,
he's an NFL analyst.
So this is tied into also. It looks like I think you included a Hagrin tweet.
I did
as well. So there's apparently a new test that you can maybe go into after I read these tweets here. So this was the tweet from Pauline.
You don't even need to. You don't need to read the tweet from Pauline. The important part of the tweet from the Pauline is that Bryce Young apparently did very well in the S2. And C.J. Stroud, it was said that he did incredibly poorly. And that was supposedly what moved the markets on the quarterbacks. The tweet from Hagrin was he listened to the podcast from the S2 people, and he wrote that it sounded like or at least I don't know if it was from the podcast or a comment from Hagrin, that the league scores in this class were inaccurate. The very low scores by players at predicted positions. The Stroud score leak seems intentional. And my reply to Hagrin was in the hash mark conspiracy Hagrin hashtag. But it's bullshitting season. That's the important thing to remember about the pre-draft season. Teams lie. If a team likes a player, it's open season on him. It's prison rules. If they don't like a player, they will say the nicest things about him. So, this all seems like bullshit to me. But we're going to wait and see. We're going to find out on Thursday night what teams actually believe. That's one of the nice things about the draft.
Yeah, and I think so. If there's two lessons to ever be learned from the podcast that you do with me, the draft ones are it's bullshit season.
Yes.
And then the ones that you've discussed before are never bet.
Yeah, of course.
So if you ever take anything away from this particular one, it's bullshit season. That's always something that you always have to keep in mind when you're reading or consuming any sort of media around this time of the year. I guess I didn't have this really in there, but is there a certain time of the year, either like months before or the day before or what have you, where there's like less bullshit perhaps, where it becomes, would you say like the day of, like is
bullshitting season ends on Thursday night.
Okay. When
at that point it's telling the truth season because it's draft time.
So that's the results of so that's when the results come in. We'll see if the words match the results of the draft. So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. So the next one here. So the next topic here is relating to the combine. So I think the way I phrased this question, I might have either seen it in your preview or maybe I saw it in a tweet.
I was very, very excited about this year's combine, mostly for the quarterbacks.
Yeah. So you considered this one of your favorite combines
Yeah.
review that. So was it mainly the quarterbacks? I mean, I know it's a quarterback driven league, but was it mainly the
It's a
quarterbacks?
quarterback-driven league, and we have quarterbacks at the extremes this year. That's what it's really about. We're pushing the margins of what we have considered possible in the NFL, in the modern NFL anyway.
Okay.
So Bryce Young, he was listed at 6 feet at Alabama, and there was these like pools to within like the quarter inch of what is your prediction of his height. Now, you don't normally see that. We don't have predictions on what a guy's going to... Oh, besides, also his weight, by the way. There was also Poole's prediction, can he get his weight within 2 pounds? And, like, that's not normal. But that's because one of our top quarterback prospects is smaller than anyone we've seen in the modern era. And I hadn't realized this. Jim McMahon, coming out of BYU in 1982, was the last quarterback apparently at the same roughly height and weight, or at least same weight, buck 90 or whatever else that we figured Bryce Young played at.
Okay.
Now, when we actually did the height and weight, by the way, they weighed the quarterbacks on like the second to last day of the combine. It was hell waiting to figure out, all right, what's it actually going to be? But on the plus side, it gave him plenty of time to add some water weight, to add some carb weight. Like, he was clearly going nuts that weekend, getting up to 204.
Sure.
So, yeah, that was fun. And also just Anthony Richardson. Holy fucking shit. Like, wow.
You know, I mean, I obviously heard his name, before the combine, but then, I started, like, I don't follow the combine probably definitely don't follow it as close as you do, but to hear of his huge leap up the board.
I mean, we thought he was going to be big, strong, and fast, and he blew the expectations away.
And so was this? So would you? Is it fair to say that it's because there was, like such limited tape on him that that we were so caught off guard by this?
I mean, his tape. It's hard to know from tape that you're going to be that blazing fast. I mean, when we see a wide receiver run against a cornerback and they're both sprinting downfield, we get some sense of them, at least relative to each other, and we know they're both fast. We can know one looks to be a little faster than the other. With Richardson, it's so hard to find film where he's running directly against someone else of elite speed.
That makes sense.
And so, yeah, it was hard to gauge. And now that we have the combine, he is on a tier by himself. So, like, and apparently he's not expected to go in the top 4 at this point. And who knows, will he go to Seattle at 5? Because if not, he could fall to Atlanta at 8. Like, he is the most golden of golden tickets.
So yeah, I think in your preview, you had said like he had broken some of your metrics.
Yes. I do not, like, when I designed my system, again, it's a legacy system, it's years old, but I did not have speed scores for a quarterback. First of all, I didn't have quarterbacks generally that large, but I certainly didn't have quarterbacks that large run that fast.
Sure.
Like, that's impressive for a running back, and by the way, he's a quarterback, and an actual quarterback, by the way. I expect him to succeed in the NFL.
Okay, so another topic that I wanted to bring up relating to the combine, we hear, about players skipping the combine. Some of them, skip it for one reason or another. But have you started to notice, like, or do you think we'll start to see more people skipping it, or do you think people have been skipping it more lately than
skipping the combine itself is snubbing your nose at the NFL. That is a bold and probably a bad decision. I don't think you skip the combine. You go to the combine, they measure you, they weigh you. You don't necessarily run the drills. I mean, some guys just decline to do so and delay to the pro day. Some guys, I mean, we don't really know if they're injured or not, but they certainly claim to be injured. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And some guys pick and choose what drills they're going to run. And we see them becoming choosier, which is understandable. I mean, this is a voluntary thing they're doing. They're not employed by the league. They could choose to run the drills or not run the drills, and teams could choose to draft them or not draft them. They're not free agents, but they're free in the moment.
Sure.
So I expect them to continue to show up, and I continue to expect them to be choosy.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so in terms of the like the value of the combine, with the tape that we supposedly that I'm guessing there's more tape than ever before just because of the fact that way
There
more.
is, in fact, more tape than ever before for a variety of reasons.
So yeah, so even like tier 3 games or what I'm just. Yeah,
Yes.
there's so many.
Everything has video
Everything's
now.
televised. Everything's basically televised. So what
Yeah.
I'm getting at here with how much tape and information we have, why is what is the value of the combine to this day that couldn't be determined through just watching the games as you will.
So one thing I haven't talked about, because I don't have access to any of this, is the interviews.
Sure.
The interviews are a huge part of the combine, getting to know the players, getting to meet them, and just getting a sense for them. Now, is this scientific at all, or is this just teams going with their gut? I have no idea. But I do know that it is very important to them, and that's something that they have access to, and I do not. What I get is I get the numbers. That's all I get.
And I mean, I guess for somebody who has so many numbers baked into your your
Yes, very much so.
you obviously you're going to continue to find value. So there's, I mean, I don't anticipate anything changing. I guess it was more just a curiosity question, but I guess there's a lot of like quote as we like to toss around the term intangibles that we don't that we can't really necessarily put numbers to that I guess why the combine.
Or we can, and we can make shit up about C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, that's true. Bullshitting season.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of like positions with the combine, like what like what drills when you're looking at when you're evaluating guys and you're looking at the combine numbers, I guess you don't have to necessarily go through all the positions, but like what are like I'm guessing there's certain drills, certain scores, certain times that you're looking at more for one position than another position. But like I don't know if you want to go, but like on a position.
I'm actually not going to go by position. I'm actually going to do something a little different than what I wrote in this outline.
Okay.
My initial game was chess, and I still think about sports in terms of controlling space. The same way you do on a chessboard, except everyone's in motion instead of one piece at a time. And so what I want to know is your ability to control and influence space. So if we're a quarterback, how well you can scan the field, that's not something you're going to get from the combine, but something I look for in film, your awareness, but also your arm strength. How big does a window have to be, and how long does it have to be open for you to hit it? And also, what is your range for these windows? That's actually one of my concerns about Bryce Young, not so much his height. Oh, I do care, and I care about his weight. But his arm is good. It's not great. Not in the same way that Will Levis or Anthony Richardson's arms are. Or even on the same level as C.J. Stroud. And so that matters. In terms of wide receivers, speed, cornerback speed, like what is your range? Like we've seen the dots. How close can your dot stay to the other dot when the other dot is running at top speed? For safeties, it's range in both directions, going backwards in coverage or horizontally in coverage, or attacking the line of scrimmage, try and carry the ball, tackle the ball carrier or blitz. And again, like tight ends, whatever else, offensive lineman, power, length. Are you going to make first contact with the defender, or is the defender going to get the first hit on you, and are you going to have to react to it? It's all about you being able to win your individual battles, whatever type of battles those may be. That's what I care about.
Okay, that's fair. And yeah, that's obviously as you've discussed in other podcasts, you're always finding different things to evaluate, reevaluate, things of that nature. So I'm sure it's a very fluid process for you.
So it is a fluid process in the sense that a couple years ago, I had to update my linebacker grading system because um, power, the ability to win in short space, the ability to win near the line of scrimmage had become less important relative to your ability to move in space and coverage and just range in general. Linebackers had evolved to become more akin to safeties. So as the game evolves, I have to evolve too.
Okay. All right. I think I know the answer to this one, just based on what you had said before. But in terms of like the players that impressed you the most at the combine, I mean, the only one I could think of that you mentioned was Richardson.
I
Um,
mean, Richardson certainly impressed me, but any of the guys who just, and unfortunately, I didn't write down a bunch of names, but guys who blow away their expectations. There's two things that happen when you do that. The first is, wow, your ceiling is higher than I thought, and the second thought is, why didn't I see that in film, or why did that not show up in your college stats?
sure.
Like, what is I now have to explain the disconnect here.
Now, do you think the combine does a better job of improving someone's stock versus dropping their stock? Um,
It goes both ways. The way you impress at the combine isn't necessarily even running your drills. Like in certain positions, it's when they measure your arms. Like if you're going to be an offensive lineman, um, if your arms don't measure up, teams are going to look at you a little differently. And so, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I noticed in you. I think you're going to get into this, or I know you got into it with your preview. Like you were talking about arms, for example, and you were talking about
Yeah.
the tackle from Northwestern.
Yep.
So that's going to be kind of like I'm guessing a test case for you, as you know, in the first couple of years of his career, seeing what if it means much, or if they move him to a different position, like you're thinking they could do. Um,
It's a possibility. I mean, he did very well at left tackle at Northwestern against top competition. But that's Northwestern. That's still not the NFL, and I'm sure he'll get a chance to play left tackle in the NFL. The question is, does he succeed or not?
sure. Okay. So yeah, going back to the player question. So, which were there any players that like disappointed you in the
So
combine?
disappointed me. All right, I'm going to look at my listing of top players. So I'm not going to say I'm disappointed in Bryce Young. I mean, we knew it was going to be interesting. I was actually kind of amused. He was able to get himself to 204 and then refused to be weighed on his pro day. Um, but no, I can't really say anyone really just. You know what? I'm lying. I'm lying. Um, Quentin Johnson is not number 7 on my overall prospects because he had an amazing combine. Let's put it that way.
And yeah, he's the one who got invited then disinvited to the.
That one, I took that personal. I don't know if he took it personal, but I took it
Yeah,
personal.
that's Seth. That's the Jordan meme with Seth there.
Yeah,
That took it
it was
personal.
like they had disinvited me personally,
But so
and
yeah,
now I will not be in Kansas City on Thursday night.
So you were actually planning on
No, I
attending?
was absolutely not going to be there
Okay.
anyway, but I'm not going to be there
Okay.
now.
Okay. Yeah. I totally forgot that they were doing the whole draft in different cities, which it's kind of nice to. I mean, I'm sure you don't like as much because it's not in your neck of the woods, but maybe it gives
I
you a
mean,
chance
I
to.
certainly enjoyed it being in New York, but I actually love this. I like different fan bases, being able to have the draft in their city. I mean, I don't know if it's come to Chicago yet,
It has,
but
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's fun to be around the other draft next. It's a nice event. So
yeah. It
good
was
for
like
them.
it was like 2014 or 2015. I forget. But we had it here. But yeah. Okay. So there was evaluating the last draft. So there was one particular player that was I guess kind of the polarizing guy, and I think you lost some money on him. Sorry, but we had to bring up Malik Willis. Um,
And that one didn't hurt too much. I'm not
okay,
no tears over Willis. I
okay,
mean, he fell all the way to the third round and then did not impress when he played. But I mean, jumping from Liberty to the NFL, he should not really have been expected to be ready to play. He's more a question of he's got some tools. Can you um, teach him the other stuff he needs to know so that he can take advantage of those tools at the next level?
okay.
And that doesn't really appear what the Titans are doing. It looks like they're going to go in another direction. So,
Yeah,
all right, whatever.
yeah, I mean, yeah, when you draft somebody where they did, it's almost a sign of you don't really expect them to be your savior.
It's not just them. Like the fact that he fell that far meant no one
Yeah,
expected him to be their savior.
yeah. So, and yeah, and like last year's class, Pickett went like 20 something. So yeah, last year was definitely kind of like a lull in the quarterback cycle of things. I remember last year not being more like line or defensive oriented, I believe.
See, last year Pickett was my quarterback one and Willis was my quarterback two. And Pickett, I mean, he played, I think, relatively well for Pittsburgh last year. I think they have some hope. I think they are looking forward to the Pickett experience.
Yeah, and yeah, he for some reason I thought he was like when I was doing the age thing, I thought he was like for some reason I thought he was a lot older than he actually is. I mean, he's going to be 25 when the season starts. So I mean, that's still
Kitty.
yeah, that's a little Panther there. She has to make her
Good kitty.
regular appearance here, but she's
Let her stay in your lap. That's awesome, kitty.
So yeah, so I thought Pickett. Yeah, for some reason I thought he was a little older, but you know, Pittsburgh always finds a way to win like 9 or 10 games, regardless of who's. So that's a credit to them. But yeah, so yeah, going back to so the Willis part, yeah, so that I guess remains to be seen. But you know, you know, he didn't do anything to like make me think, you know, that he was going to turn into like, you know, I'm saying Josh Allen because Josh Allen was at Wyoming and had some polarizing features to him when he got drafted, but not that anyone was expecting him to be
Our call apparently ends in 10 minutes.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I just saw that too. So, so we'll I'm gonna find a way to splice this together here, or at least have a good breaking off point. So yeah, let's. I'm not sure why that happened, but I guess I didn't realize that there was a monetary feature to this Google One premium plan here. But yeah, we'll just kind of go and just see where it takes us. So. The next part that we had wasn't necessarily related to last year's draft, but it was another like discussion of sort of like a bust or like reevaluating like where you went wrong with somebody. It was the whole trade of the Falcons trading.
All right. One last thing about Willis, then we'll talk about the tweet and Jeff. Yeah. Willis was also only 6 feet, so when you're a short quarterback prospect, it's a little easier to fall in the draft. I'll say that.
Okay.
And so now let's read the tweet. The Falcons are trading a 2023 fifth-round pick to the Lions for cornerback Jeff Okudah per the source. And then the kicker to that is, oh, by the way, the Lions are also paying $1.5 million of his salary. All that just to get a fifth-round pick. And the question being, where did I go wrong with Okudah? I mean, and just for context, I called him the best college cornerback I'd ever scouted. So just to be clear, I was in on Okudah.
Did I lose you?
And he mentioned lack of tackling ability was pretty stark from the get-go. For me personally, I generally give cornerbacks a year to take their lumps in the NFL and learn how to play, and then they'll see how they're doing. So Hagen was much quicker to fold on Okuda and right to do so than I was. Now, he got hurt. He never showed anything on his NFL film. He's put in the discount rack. Where did I go wrong? I guess this is a question of, was Okuda just not a good enough athlete? You know what? I'm going to look up his RAS score, his relative athleticism score, right now because I want to know. Yeah, he got mostly green, but not an elite 40-yard dash. Good vertical jump, good broad jump, and no agility. See, no agility testing for a cornerback. I guess it makes you think. And that's one of the areas where he just did not impress in the NFL. So, yeah, if you're going to be an elite top 5 cornerback, you better impress with your raw athleticism on some level, and that may be the year. But look, I didn't take him 3rd overall. And lots of other evaluators, his college film at Ohio State was really good. He was very good at doing his job in college, but that does not mean you can do your job in the pros. There's a huge step up. So
yeah, and yeah, you take his, like, when you're talking about playing for Ohio State, you're talking about a top tier college program. So you tend to, I'm guessing those guys are already elevated a little bit as is because they're at Ohio State.
So being at Ohio State means a couple things. It does mean you get to face some top competition. You get to face Michigan, and presumably you play in some
So
BCS or whatever you call it games.
yeah, there's gonna be
So like
there'll be
the playoff.
some dog shit teams. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but for the most part, you're gonna be playing in a handful of high profile games every year.
Yes.
So yeah, again, that's part of your evaluation process that you'll look at a similar profile next time and be maybe a little more wary. You know,
So slightly. I don't want the sins of Okuda to fall upon someone else. It just means double check.
sure. Yeah, because one thing I was gonna mention when we were talking about you're talking about Young's profile, like is are all the guys that are his like similar size and weight, could they possibly be elevated in future years if we see him succeed in the next in his first couple years? I mean, I'm sure that would do more to help them than because right now I'm guessing that most people, there's still some people that are very skeptical of height and weight with the quarterback position, where if Young did fail, it would just confirm their priors, and they would continue to remain wary of height and weight with quarterbacks.
So there's a few things that Young has to prove. He has to prove that he can hit the middle of the field, because that's something that sometimes short quarterbacks, they have trouble finding those lanes. It's easier to find lanes to throw outside. The next one is, can he stay healthy? If he can play 17 games in a season and not wear down, like not be clearly compromised later in the season, that'll move the needle a little bit. So it's not just the 5'10", it's the $190.
Okay.
That's the big thing that I'll be looking for.
Okay. Okay, so in terms of from last year to this year, how your evaluation process changed in terms of evaluating the certain skills, positions, player types. Did you do anything drastically different over the course of the past year?
So the big thing we're adjusting to now is not just older players, but smaller players at a variety of positions, lighter players.
So kind of rolling the previous topics kind of together, the whole age, and then also the height and weight that we've been discussing with Bryce. So
the NFL is just getting more open-minded about all these things because they have to be.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair, and yeah, well, I guess time will tell on in terms of how that works out for them. But um, unlike like certain sports, I feel like football still there's still. I mean, I know analytics have taken over certain teams' decision making, but I feel like there's still a certain things that haven't been fully optimized yet with NFL. Like with NBA, you got everyone basically shoots 3 pointers or in the paint. Um, baseball they had the efficiency with the shift, so they switched that up obviously. So I mean, so I guess what I'm getting at is I don't. I mean, you've probably I don't know if that's part of why this open mindedness or like different like things with NFL are being considered, but yeah, I
The
guess.
NFL is a constantly moving target because the game evolves, the rules change. We're constantly learning what works and what doesn't. So if you look at an NFL game, even from a decade ago, it's going to look different than a modern NFL game now. And I'm assuming the NFL in 10 years, we might suddenly see a lot more wide receivers that weigh 160, 170, 180 pounds flying around the field, and a lot more quarterbacks 5'9", 5'10", 5'11" as well. That might be a change we're eventually going to see, where it's more about athleticism, the ability to get open in space, and less about the ability to physically dominate and overpower someone.
Okay. All right. So let's see the. So I guess this is kind of where we get to like more draft specifics for um, this year, and maybe we can go over some of the. I know you mentioned depending on time, um, maybe going over some of the top handful of picks, but in terms of like a breakdown of the upcoming draft, um, we had you had a kind of a starting point here of just kind of discussing the quarterbacks here. I think my question might have gotten cut off here, but it looks like here you were just looking to maybe have an initial discussion on the some of the quarterbacks from what I can see here.
So this might be a good time for us to do our cutoff and
Oh,
then.
oh no, so yeah, I so no actually so yeah I so yeah I actually just took care of that, so it's so we're
Oh,
good.
okay.
So we're good to continue.
Okay.
So
Um, so let's see. The quarterbacks, you want to know about the quarterbacks of this year's draft, correct?
so yeah, I guess well yeah, I guess it looks like my question got cut off. I don't know what
Yeah.
happened to it, but you were basically just I guess we were talking about like the you know I was the
Oh, I see. The
yeah
you,
the break.
you compared. Oh, this that I must have somehow done that. But you compared the 2021 draft
Oh
to the
yes,
2022 draft for
yes,
quarterbacks.
that's I guess that's yeah that is the question. So okay, so yeah,
All
so
right.
so basically because last year's was obviously very
A
weak.
little bit quarterback
Yeah,
light, we'll
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so just using it as a comparison point because there's going to be three, probably four, probably not five, but who knows with how teams are. Um, quarterbacks to get drafted in the first round. So,
I'm very confident we get at least four.
okay,
In terms of five, I'm skeptical, but four, yes.
okay,
So one of the biggest things is there's no Trevor Lawrence this year. There's no guy that we know he checks off every box: height, weight, collegiate performance at a high level program. Like that guy is not here this year, with the exception of maybe C.J. Stroud. Like I clearly am all in on Stroud, and the NFL is right now they might not be. So he might fall in the draft. He's certainly not a lock to go first in the same way Trevor Lawrence was. So there's no Trevor Lawrence this year. Um, and then in terms of comparing drafts, I mean, Will Levis and number two is Zach Wilson. Like I have nothing more to add here.
okay.
In terms of Trey Lance, like yeah, we can compare him to Anthony Richardson. Like we didn't get a ton of tape on either of them, so not a ton of reps to judge for either. But while Lance was a plus athlete with nice size, as I noted earlier, Richardson is just off the map. He is special in a way that no one else has been. And that just leaves Bryce Young. I don't know if I'd compare would I compare him to Trevor Lawrence? They're both he's expected to go one, but if you put them next to each other, use a wide or a tall angle lens, whatever you would want to call that. But yeah, they are completely different molds, and so one was one of the surest picks we've seen in years, and the other one's a gamble.
Okay. So yeah, in terms of the position groups in this current class, is which like which groups are you, or which group or groups of like positions are you most high on or most interested in seeing how they do in the draft?
Um, the cornerback class is deep as hell. Tremendous positional group. Um, Tight ends, I think, are pretty good this year in general. There's no elite like Kyle Pitts, but he was kind of a unicorn. Um, I like this wide receiver class more than the NFL seems to. I don't know how many wide receivers are actually going in the first round, but I think I gave 6 first-round grades. So clearly I am higher on it than they are. And in terms of like the quarterback class, like I love Stroud and I'm really high on Richardson. And Lord knows where they're going to get drafted.
Okay. And kind of what kickstarted, the at least the new discussion on one, because the Bears were never, I guess I'd say the Bears were never expected to keep the one pick just based on, everything that is known about the one pick in a quarterback friendly year. You're not going to keep the number one pick if you already have who you perceive to be your quarterback. So nobody really expected the Bears to keep that pick. So they traded it about 6 or 7 weeks ago. So yeah, evaluating that trade now, have your opinions changed on that? And who would you say? Do you think both fan bases should be happy, or do you think it's still just kind of a one-sided, like it should kind of just the Bears in that regard?
The Bears, I would say, did a better job of gauging the market. And they had the advantage of being the one whose phone was ringing or not ringing, as the case may be, whereas the Panthers didn't necessarily know. Hey, Panther. Didn't necessarily know what other teams were offering the Bears, or in this case, maybe not offering the Bears. And so the Bears, I think, when they saw what the Panthers were willing to give, pushed them a little harder and then agreed. And I think the Bears did a very good job on this one. And the Panthers, well, this rolls directly in to your next question. 0 chance the Panthers do not know who they want, right? And so let's look at the Panthers traded away. The 9th and 61st overall picks, DJ Moore, and their 2024 first and second round picks. And the 2024 first round pick has a decent shot of being in the top 10, given the roster and the fact that they have a rookie quarterback. Now, they certainly might do better than that. They might be in the 15 range. Who knows? They might make the playoffs. But there's also a chance that they don't. And so the Bears either did really well in this trade or did really, really well in this trade. And from the Panthers' perspective, if you're trading up to number 1 overall in a draft which has multiple top quarterback prospects, you have to know which one you want. You're trading up to number 1 to have the choice. The Arizona Cardinals were also interested in moving back. And so if you're willing to take any of the top 3 guys, we could ignore Richardson now, but if you are happy with Stroud, Levis, or Young, if you're agnostic to 3, then you could trade to 3 at a much cheaper price than it costs to move to number 1. So now they move to number 1. They want one man, and they've got their man.
Okay. so let's see. So the next one here, I had to adjust the outline yesterday or like today
Yeah.
because of the Rogers trade. So first of all, my condolences because I know that's not what you wanted to.
It wasn't what I wanted, but I knew it was coming. I had plenty of warning. We all had plenty of
Yeah,
warning.
that's true. So yeah, the Jets they were picking 13. Now they're picking 15. Giants are picking 25. So bringing your New York fan sensibility into this, who are you hoping that they um, pick, or maybe a position group that you hope they pick from for both of these teams?
So for the Jets, actually, it was actually kind of a fun experiment and try and figure out who's going to be off the board. So let's walk through this. We expect four quarterbacks to be off the board at this point. And while I'm always a little surprised to see how highly running backs are valued, it does look like that Bijan Robinson is expected to be off the board at that point. So that's five players gone. The expectation is that one wide receiver, not my top guy, is expected to be off the board. So that's six guys gone. Certainly, we're expected to have at least two offensive linemen off the board. That's eight. Um, in terms of edges, it's a little tricky. Like Wilson and Anderson are going to be gone, so that's 10. Smith and possibly Van Ness, which would put us at 12. But we also expect Carter to be gone, the defensive tackle 13, and then two cornerbacks, Gonzalez and Witherspoon. So that's 15. And one of those guys, therefore, you can't take 15 guys and 14 draft picks. So one of those guys is going to be there. And plus, we also might get an additional offensive tackle or even two offensive tackles off the board by then. So, like, some of these guys will be available in the Jets, and I don't know who. In terms of what I'd want them to do, I think offensive tackle 3 or offensive tackle 4 are both fine. I'm okay with them strengthening their offensive line. I think there's at least enough value there. In terms of the edges, I like Murphy more than the NFL apparently does, but we'll see. I do not like Van Ness this early. He's expected to go in the top 15. I would not take him there. He's right now just too limited in his techniques and ability. And he did start at Iowa, so I would not touch him. They could take the third cornerback, Porter. I feel like it would be an odd call given their current roster construction. But in terms of just value, I think that's a fine pick. I wouldn't complain. But my expectation is that they're going to go offensive tackle. So we'll see.
Okay. And then the Giants?
So one of the guys I talked about the Jets, if the Jets were somehow going to do a reach, I do not want them to do that. But if they were, my most amusing or favorite reach would be Darnell Washington, the tight end. I expect him to be there for the Giants, which would be nice. But more realistically, the Giants can do one of two things, which would make me happy. One is when you're at 25, you can just simply wait to see which players that were expected to go in the top 15 or top 20 fall to you. You can catch a falling star and just get value there. Or the other thing that would make me happy is if they were to take Quentin Johnston. Like, I think he's a really good wide receiver. And the Giants can certainly use one of those. So I'd be very happy with that. What they'll actually do, we're going to have to wait and see. This is one of those drafts where I expect we're going to have a lot of surprises on Thursday night.
Okay. And let's see. So, the one of the topics we've recently introduced, and I think it goes back to at least a couple of years ago. I don't remember if we were doing it much before, but obviously the Mac Jones stuff was obviously the most popular bet from a couple of years ago that made you very happy.
Yeah.
And I think last year I was kind of looking through the outline from last year, and I think you were, based on what I remember reading, I don't know, felt like you were down last year or you lost last year, but
So I don't remember feeling particularly bad about last year's draft. I certainly might have, but not enough to make an impression.
It felt like just based on our discussion that you had way more capital on Jones
Oh,
than you did on anything last year.
Oh God, yes.
Um,
Like fading Mac at 3. Just like just, I shouted bullshit at that one. So my sense is bullshit. And
yeah,
this year I've called bullshit on some stuff, but the market is like, no, we're telling the truth in this one. So like, let's get into the things that I have so far disagreed with
sure.
on.
Let's do it.
So for number one, I've taken the field, which is not Bryce Young. Um, and the worst part of this is it right now looks like my best chance of winning this bet is Will Levis is number one instead, which is like, and my comment here, that's like watching your mother-in-law drive off a cliff in your new sports car. Like, mixed emotions. Like, thanks for the money, but I don't know the ball anymore. Oh God, I don't know how to
Yeah,
feel.
it'll help. Maybe it'll help you to know that you're not in the will. So
Yeah,
maybe it's
like
yeah.
when that trade happened, um, the market moved to C.J. Stroud for a couple reasons, but one of the ones was the Panthers trading up for their guy. Um, in terms of what like we'd expect them to want, they want a quarterback who would check off a variety of boxes, play from a top program with a performance, and C.J. Stroud was the most obvious candidate. Now, for a variety of reasons, he's dropped lately and Young has risen, but trading up for a 5'10", buck 90 quarterback, it's ballsy in its own way. So like I'm expecting to lose this bet, but I'd be very excited to see what happens. But let's talk about the real ones. Will Levis over
Right.
4.5. Like this is right now. At least when I wrote on the outline was available better than 4-1. You watch the film on Levis, you do not see a top 5 quarterback. You just don't. And so like if the top 3 quarterbacks are all gone and he's the last, like the last man standing at the last chance saloon, fine. I get it, him number 4. I do not get him going ahead of CJ Stroud. And if you're going to gamble on a project, and I view Levis as a project, um, I view Richardson as just having so much more upside. So I don't get it. Like I am missing something. But the market believes that the Texans and or the Colts are going to want him in the top 4. So, um, but here's the one that's most personal to me. This one is Stroud ahead of Levis. This is the test. Do I know ball? And right now, I'm an underdog. I'm a sizable underdog. This one has been above plus 170. It's now back to plus 170. Um, like if Levis goes ahead of Stroud, even to a brain dead organization like the Texans, I have to wonder what are they seeing that I don't see. We have access to the same film. Like they have access to interviews. I don't. I don't know if Levis interviews really well and Stroud does not. But I can't look at what these guys do and watch how they play and expect Levis to be a better NFL quarterback than I would expect Stroud to be. I just can't. So this one will hurt on Thursday night if it went out.
So that's so yeah. The would you say so? Yeah, you obviously have a lot to tie up in Levis. So I guess this is kind of
I have faded Levis every which way but loose.
yeah.
And so it would be ironic if you were to go number one, cause me to lose so much money on every dollar I faded against him, and then watch Young go 2 and cash in on 30-1 on Young going second.
Yeah, that's yeah. So this is like Mac Jones 2.0.
It is Mac Jones 2.0, except that he's got a cannon. Like, I get it. He's got size and he's got a cannon, and Kentucky put him in the worst possible position to succeed. So, like, you're giving him a mulligan.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's something I'll admit. Like I'm not saying that I religiously look at like quarterback records or anything like that. But like one thing I was I was I remember the first quarterback I had like a weird thought on like on why he was being evaluated so high was like just based on the team's record was Jay Cutler, just because like he was like because when I'm looking at a guy who's being drafted high, I expect him to be on a college team that's at least contending for a national championship. Um, so like when a guy's just kind of like a middle of the road, like record wise, and I guess the same probably thing with Allen too, where I'm expecting more like I'm expecting to see like them in more primetime games, expecting to see them like I said in the national championship picture. I understand Wyoming's not that type of team, but hopefully you know what I'm getting at. But like just to see like Levis, like I don't remember how good Kentucky was last year or what bowl they even appeared in, but
Their offense was a dumpster fire. It just was. Wide receivers didn't know what they're doing. Offensive linemen didn't know what they're doing. And so, but Levis certainly didn't help them rise above that. Just looking at him and looking at the other top quarterback prospects, they all looked good at times. Like Stroud had his moments. Young had his moments. Richardson, goddamn, had his moments. I don't feel that the same way with Levis for the most part. Yes, he threw some great routes, but I never got the overall set. Well, you know what? There were some times when he got into rhythm. But overall, I did not watch him and feel like I'm looking at a top guy. Now, that doesn't mean he can't be. He's got physical traits. Like, he might be the next Herbert or Allen. Who knows? But that's not my sense of it.
okay. All right, so you had some less important
Yeah. So,
like less important stances, I should say. On,
sure.
draft,
That's
betting
absolutely
wise, betting wise.
So I did do one bit of Paris Johnson ahead of Skronsky, and this was just based on the arm length thing, where you have a chance, two guys, they're both considered top offensive tackle prospects. One's got 36-inch arms, one guy's got 32-inch arms. I mean, I was laying a little bit of wood, but not a ton. Yeah, I'll take the guy with 36-inch arms.
Okay.
And we're going to talk more about Darnell Washington, but just this one is more just for fun than to try and make serious money at all. But Darnell Washington under 38.5, simply because such an amazing athlete, just this profile, the size, weight, strength, like this guy looks like a manimal. He's a Planet Theory tight end, if such a thing could be said to exist. So, like, yeah, under 38.5, maybe some team falls in love with him. That's all it takes. But that one's more for fun.
Okay.
And let's see. Oh, so this is more recently. The pass rusher Tyree Wilson is now expected. And it's a close thing, but he's expected to go in the top 4.5. And I don't see that. Like, I have over 4.5 and over 5.5 on Wilson. Again, like the market is telling me I'm going to lose these bets, but okay. I mean, this is me doing my homework and shooting my shot. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but I will wager on me expecting the NFL to act rationally. And this has worked in the past with Mac Jones. And it could be Waterloo Thursday night.
Okay. So yeah, before we go into we had some listener questions. Did you want to go over your like?
Let's do the listener questions first, and
Okay.
then.
Okay. Okay. So this one came to me through Johnny Nissan here through direct message here. As a lifelong Raiders fan for 2 years, how do I deal with knowing that the owners have no idea how to run a team and give up? Do I change teams? Do I ask Jets, Browns, or Texans fans for knowledge?
Welcome to the Hotel California. I can't sing that at all. I am so sorry to anyone who just had to listen to that. But like, you
Do
can
you have
check in and never leave.
do you
Or
have
if
a
you want a more modern example from the game Hades, there is no escape. So no, they're your team, you're their fan, and you just have to suck it up for the next 30, 40 years and just never play in the Super Bowl. Certainly never win one. That's just what it is.
um, yeah, your singing there made me want to ask an offshoot question.
Go ahead.
Do you do karaoke?
Terrible.
Okay.
Absolutely terrible
Do,
karaoke.
do you have a go to karaoke song?
Sledgehammer.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Sledgehammer is a song that's more about perfect timing than, say, perfect pitch, but I
Mm-hmm.
could fail at both of them at the same time.
Excellent. Yeah, I would say so when I have done it, I haven't done it in a while, but I either go with Van Halen's Ice Cream Man
Ooh.
or Enter Sandman is just kind of a you know pump me
I
up
feel
song.
like Enter Sandman is more, people aren't getting to listen to you. They know how it sounds in their head
Yeah,
and they're going to listen to it in their head.
sure. Yeah, that one I guess is more sentimental because there was a time I went to karaoke where it was just a bunch of chicks singing like country songs and stuff, and like the guy was just happy to hear like somebody um, request like something different. So I got a free drink from the DJ that night for singing Enter Sandman just to break up the monotony. So I guess maybe that's why I have a soft spot for that one. But yeah, those are my two go-to ones. Anyways, those
Well,
those
listen, I
aside,
need to tell you a very, very brief karaoke story.
sure.
I've been to Japan 4 times. I'm going to be going another time this December. And one of the things that they're really into there is karaoke.
Hmm.
And something that's fun is going to these karaoke bars, and they have also a lot of private rooms. But seeing someone who clearly does not understand or speak a lick of English sing a song in English with perfectly as well as you can imagine an American singing it, and then not understanding and it coming in English after singing having some song, like, great job. I have no idea what you're saying, but thank you. Like,
the, the only thing I could think of that could be comparable, I don't know if I've ever heard anyone sing Rammstein, but um, that'd be kind of maybe the only song I could think of that Du hast maybe,
yeah.
but
Sprichst du Deutsch?
yes.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean actually no, I don't. I don't. I only speak Rammstein.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Professor Shine, I guess we kind of touched base on this, but I mean, not everything, but he wanted to discuss. Let's discuss how truly tiny Young is and the odds he ever plays 17 games in a row.
So the NFL has become more friendly to smaller and thinner players than it was when I was growing up. A certain amount of violence has been removed from the game and has been replaced with speed and artistry. And we're seeing this in other sports as well. Basketball has become less physical and less dangerous and more freedom of movement, and we're seeing more points. The question is, where are the limits? Because these size profiles that the NFL has, these guidelines, they they came to exist for a reason. Um, the smaller you are, the less protection you have when you're taking a hit. Like a lot of these bigger guys, the problem isn't like any one hit, it's that they just take more of them. So what Bryce Young will have to do is take fewer of them. He's going to have to be more elusive. He's going to have to get the ball out. And it's not just avoiding sacks. Again, just it's not all sacks. There's hits as well. He's going to have to be careful to try and not take too many of them because a smaller guy taking hits will just start to wear down more. Um, and you also just run the risk of a 300-pound guy just crunching you. I mean, if you're 240 and you get tackled by a 300-pound guy, that's different than if you're 190. So it is a concern, and I am skeptical that a guy whose arm strength, when healthy, is in the acceptable range is going to still be able to gun it later in the season when you're starting to play through, if not pain, then just some wear and tear. Um, so I am in fact worried about Young. That's not to say would I still take him to top five? Yes, because I've seen a lot of great play from him. I just want to take him first overall.
Sure. No, I thought like with I like the closest thing that I could think to him recently was Kyler Murray in terms of like a height and weight worry entering the draft, but I don't remember the weight being discussed
So
with
the thing
Murray as
about
much.
Murray and the thing about Russell Wilson is it's actually twofold. Their heights are all similar, but Wilson and Murray were premier athletes with strong arms, and they were both thicker than Young.
Okay.
So it's not just height, it's weight, it's thickness, it's arm strength. He's pushing the limits beyond just height,
Okay.
which is why I was very skeptical that he was going to be the first pick overall. And to be honest, I expect him now to be the first overall pick, but I'll be watching Thursday night. We're going to see.
Sure. Okay. All right. The next question from Woo Benny NMU. Darnell Washington. Am I right?
You are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that one just based on the fact that you bet the under on that, so you're obviously
I think he's a tremendous prospect, but I acknowledge that he's not a finished project, and he did not have a lot of production in college. Now, the thing about Georgia is there's only so many balls to go around, and they didn't really have to throw to him. They threw to him when the other guys recovered, or he was just wide open, whatever else. His per catch stats were pretty good, but his per route stats were not, because again, a lot of other options. So I'm excited for him in the pros. I would be happy to see him come to New York, particularly if he falls to us in the second round. Um, but I expect someone to fall in love with him, but this one's again just for fun. This is not me calling bullshit or anything.
sure. Okay. And then the last question here was from Dan Mahoney here. Caesars is offering first drafted positions for each team. He was wondering if you had looked at any, or if you did, if you saw any value.
So I personally have not, but I have seen analysts who specialize in certain teams look at this stuff and just point and laugh. In certain cases, they can understand this is not what our GM does. For example, let's look at the Eagles. Bijan Robinson, that's unlikely to be his landing spot because the Eagles do not particularly prioritize spending high picks on running backs.
Sure.
And so while 10 might be a reasonable landing spot for him, might not be, in my opinion, but whatever it might be, they are not a team I would expect to take him. So.
Yeah, and when you're mentioning teams for him, my buddy Tim, who's a Dallas fan, just knowing that Dallas was one of the more recent teams to pick a first round running back, that seems to be a more reasonable. Not to say, I forget exactly what pick Dallas has in the 20s, but that seems to be more reasonable than Philly for me. But
so the Houston Texans have the number 2 and number 12 overall picks. The number 12 pick, they might take a quarterback at 2 and then trade the 12th pick to someone looking to trade up for a player. And it would be hilarious to me if anyone, particularly the Dallas Cowboys, were to trade up to 12 and take Robinson.
Yeah, it just seems like something that they might do, even though they franchised Pollard, but Pollard just got hurt, so who the hell knows?
Who the hell knows?
But okay, so yeah, did you want to?
So right now, let's just look at the top 8 or so, and just look at various ways the draft could unfold.
Okay.
So, first pick overall, the Panthers could take Bijan and just be legends. That would be burn it all down. We traded everything for Robinson. It would be a great moment in television history.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially for all they got for McCaffrey. I thought.
Yeah,
I thought that was after looking at it, I feel like that was a trade that benefited both teams based on.
Certainly, because it gave them the capital to go get their quarterback, and it gave the 49ers, they got to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, I know you're saying that in jest, but you're right. It would be hilarious for them to beat.
Yeah, but among the serious options, they're going to take a quarterback. And so there's 4 options of quarterback. You take Young and you get an A grade with a size asterisk. You got a guy who is a good athlete, great college production at a premier program. He understands the game. He knows ball. This is a guy who can play, and you just hope he stays healthy.
Now would that, based on how you've discussed these quarterbacks, that he feels like the quote unquote safest pick?
So I view Stroud as the safest pick.
Yeah.
Because he checks off all the boxes without being extreme size outlier.
Yeah.
So that's why I would give Stroud an A grade with no asterisks. You know what? I'm just hold on a second. I'm gonna put this on the thing so you can see my notes and ask any questions about them if you want. So 1 second.
Okay.
Well, I'm putting this at the bottom of the outline. So hopefully this formatted a little oddly, but you can see this all.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
so look, I'd give yet again. Young would be an A grade. Stroud would be an A grade. Richardson gets an A plus for balls. Like if you're taking Anthony Richardson first overall, like I am so proud of you for trading up and just going for the gold ring. Not even the brass ring. This is Sonic here. Like, dude, whatever. I can't even. I'm not going to sing the Sonic music. But like, you trade up for Anthony Richardson. You are going for it. You're trying to say in 2 to 3 years, this guy develops. The rest of my division is fucked. Like if Richardson develops into a proper NFL quarterback, and I think he can, I think his flaws are mostly fixable. And I think like even in the pre-draft process, his mechanics have improved. So I have faith in Richardson. So that would be amazing. And if they take Will Levis first, like, yeah, I'm drinking early. Like, actually, no, I'm going to be drinking before the draft starts. What are we talk about here? But like, yeah, start going to the hard stuff at that point. Like Levis, as I wrote here, would make me rage quit the draft if not for the hope that Young would go second.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
have.
So
So
let's
that's
I'm presuming that Young goes first overall.
okay.
So the Texans are now in the situation where Stroud's available, Richardson's available, and Levis is available. Like Stroud makes me happy, Richardson makes me proud, Levis makes me hurl. So let's assume Levis. Um, the Cardinals are an interesting one because I mean, we have to presume that they're trying to trade the pick. They've certainly announced they're trying to do so. Whether or not they succeed, I have no idea. But I'm going to assume they'll fail in trying to trade out of this spot. Um, so, like, there's been some talk of Paris Johnson, which I'm really skeptical about. Tyree Wilson, which I am less skeptical about, but more surprised. Um, like, they are confusing options when, like, Will Anderson's available. So Will Anderson, he was awesome in 2021 and is still very good in 2022. He would be my first non-quarterback off the board. And part of that has to do with Jalen Carter's off-field issues, which have just gotten worse and worse as the process has gone along. So, but yeah, they might, the expectation apparently right now is that's Wilson. So, which would leave the Colts. They want a quarterback, and they apparently want it to be Levis, which again makes me feel bad. It makes me feel like I don't know ball. Uh, but if they settle for Stroud, then like my situation is we have the Texans and the Colts. They have both taken quarterbacks in the top 5. The Texans went second, the Colts went fourth, and I'm much happier for the Colts. I think they're in a much better position. And so, like, this might be how the draft plays out, but they might not like Stroud. They might like Richardson. They might take a defensive player if they don't like the quarterbacks. And this is one of the things where the draft is very unpredictable in the top 4 this year. My sense is that they would settle for Stroud. Whatever. Seahawks. All right, let me ask you actually. Here's your choice. You're the Seahawks. The top 3 quarterbacks are off the board. Richardson's available. And Tyree Wilson's off the board. What would you do if you're the Seahawks?
Well, just based on what the capital that Seattle has and the fact that they you know just you know they might have they resurrected Geno Smith's career, but
Yeah,
at the same
they
time
read him off, and he didn't write back.
but at
So
the same time the length of his deal and his age obviously tell a story, and even if he builds off of last year or is it even like 80 or 90% of what last year was, that would still be a success compared to what anyone could have ever expected. Um, at the same time, if you're, if you kind of lucked into this pick because Denver did so poorly with the guy that you traded
story.
to. I mean, So like I would say Richardson, probably just based on what I've I'll admit I haven't watched any games of his. I don't watch like a ton of college football, but just based on what I've just based on people who know more than I do, I would probably say Richardson. And I should say I'm definitely one of those fans that knows that they definitely don't know you know even 1/10 of 1% of what these guys know, because I'm just going off of what people are telling me to think, and there's certain people I've weeded out, certain people I trust, and you know from the people that I trust, I would say Richardson most is would probably be the best pick if he were to fall to Seattle. But just that's more of like thinking like, all right, he'll probably start in year 2 or 3, depending on how Gino does.
And that's fine. Like Richardson going to a spot where he could take some time to develop would be perfect, and it would also give Pete Carroll most likely his final franchise quarterback. So he'd be all in on Richardson too. It would be a nice landing spot.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and what's funny is that like kind of like it would be like the perfect analogy to Lance in the fact that he's the he'd presumably be the youngest quarterback drafted. I guess I don't really know the guys in the later rounds, but the youngest quarterback that matters drafted, I guess, is the better phrase. But like Lance, yeah, Lance was 20. He was actually 20 when he got drafted. 21 when the season started. But yeah, still like so much. Where even if you sit him for a couple years, you still got him for 2 or 3 years of that rookie deal. So I think that'd be where I would go, just based on just the value of the position in the field.
it's certainly where I would go as well.
Um,
Like, all right, so let's assume that happens. So you're now the Lions, and you get access to Will Anderson, who I've used as the premium pass rusher, and Jalen Carter, an elite defensive tackle. Um, like they need defense there. Although there's this other guy, cornerback Witherspoon, who's been talked about going in the top 6 overall. So like, and that's the thing. Two of these guys have to fall. So
yeah, yeah, they're that's another team that had fun with the quarterback trade from several years ago. Um, they they got they got they somehow the Lions somehow got the younger quarterback and got more picks
yes,
and got the sixth. They got a sixth pick out of it basically. That's amazing. By the way,
it is amazing. They
um,
did some nice stuff. Although the
um,
Rams did win a Super Bowl too. So
but yeah, so it's one of those where no matter what happens to the Rams, it was worth it for them. But yeah, the Lions, with Hutchinson, another pass rusher, that'd be
yeah, it like the Lions get Hutchinson and get like Will Anderson. Like good for them.
yeah.
And that would leave like the Raiders in the spot where they could take Jalen Carter because they're an organization that doesn't really care about that off-field stuff. So, but it also means that all the quarterback-hungry teams are now out of luck unless they want to take a 25-year-old.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, the more we talk about it, I still think that's you know, that more likely on day 2, if I had to guess for
Yeah,
Hooker
I would agree with you there.
But yeah, but again, with quarterbacks, people are horny. Teams are horny for quarterbacks, especially on a rookie deal, and if they think that his and he's coming off of an injury too. That's another thing.
Yes.
So that's like another you know thing that's in the wrong checkbox side of the checkbox for him. But so yeah, I don't see unless somebody's like completely horny for him. I don't see it. I don't see it for him. But yeah, I understand. You're not a mock guy. So I'm just
Not really. It's just a fun thought experiment when you realize
yeah,
just how many guys
yeah,
you consider for the spots and then realize, well, some of these guys just have to fall.
yeah. Yeah, and yeah, the quarterbacks, like, you talk about four guys who are going to be drafted in the first round, and just based on the pure math of how these things tend to go, there's one or two of them that will be Pro Bowlers. Another one or two of them, maybe maybe one of them's average, one of them's a complete bust, or two of them are complete busts. That's how these things usually play out. So it just well, obviously time will tell. That's the old cliche with this stuff, but yeah, I think I was talking to somebody that actually that guy who asked the question about Washington, and it was looking at I think the '83 draft had the best quarterback class from what I saw.
I
Um,
mean, that was the Marino Elway year. It's tough to beat
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, and even like the lesser guys in that were like
Yeah, Kelly played in 4 Super Bowls in a row.
O'Brien. Um, Tony Eason made
Mhm.
a Super Bowl. The Patriots, like even like the lesser guys in that were like still not that bad. So like, so it's really hard. Obviously better than anyone on how hard this is. I was actually looking at some of your older analysis on your blog there and on your WordPress site, and
Mhm.
like some of them that just stood out. I remember seeing in the year that he was drafted. Stephon Diggs was like in the 140s, for example, and I know that he was drafted accordingly. So I mean, it wasn't like you were had any different. You weren't thinking anything differently of him than other people were. Like he wasn't top 20, and you were thinking he was 140 or something like that.
But
Like,
he took the leap. Like he
but yeah, but
developed.
so yeah, so there's always going to be those things with these. So that's always like the caveat. That's always some of the one of the fun things. And I again, like I don't know where you had Kittle, but Kittle was obviously drafted like in I think the fourth or fifth round. I don't remember
Yeah, something like
exactly.
that.
But yeah,
I probably had him as a day 3 prospect.
so there's always going to be, and that's the fun of the draft too. You like you won't know it right away in many cases, but in a couple of years, it's always fun to look back at that stuff.
I mean, you
And
guys took Mr. Irrelevant
yeah,
to the NFC Championship game.
yeah, that's once Lance got hurt, you obviously knew my thoughts. I mean, I knew what Jimmy was capable of, and I thought that there was a chance that Jimmy could do you know what Purdy ended up doing, which was leading because I've already seen it. Um, but for the last pick of the draft in that same year to be, in that spot, I mean, it says more, about the team that like it says so much about the team around him and the coaches around him that makes me feel good no matter who they plug in.
You are
To start.
currently a very well-run organization,
So
and I understand like people being a little down on the fact that you guys traded up and gave up the material for Lance. But for the most part, like there's reasons to be impressed
yeah,
with the 49ers.
yeah, and they don't pick till like the third round at this point, so there's nothing draft wise, specific to the Niners at this point yet, outside of what our division does, and even the Rams. The Rams never have a first round pick. Their last first round pick was Goff, I think. So
Hmm.
I don't think they've had a first round pick since then. And the Cardinals, even the Cardinals are going to miss Murray for maybe the whole year, given the timing of his injury last year. So I'm not really too worried about who they pick because they're not going to pick a quarterback, and obviously they have Murray. So I'm not. Yeah, it's
You know
not.
what? If the Cardinals were to just completely shock us and take a quarterback, it would be hilarious.
Yeah, I mean that would that that's what we're here for. That's the beauty of the draft. I don't know how many people expected the Bears to trade up for Trubisky the year that they traded up for him, but I was thrilled with the return that the Niners got that year. But you know, but yeah, I'm excited. I know you are. I know this is one of your favorite times of the year.
My
So
jaw is on the floor right now. 'Cause not only does the Niners not have like a first round pick or a second round pick, they don't even have a pick in the regular part of the
yeah,
third.
it's all compensatory, and I'm wondering like how much of that they factored in when they traded for McCaffrey. Like maybe
I assume they
like
had to have.
yeah like how long in advance are some because some of those compensatory picks like are probably known before we even know about them.
I suspect they know.
I mean, because I know that they get picks for like minority hires and
Yeah.
other various things that they've incentivized teams to do. But yeah, I mean that could have played a role. And also, yeah, I mean I guess they're a team that doesn't necessarily need. I guess every team would like to have a first and second round pick, but not every team necessarily needs one. So I mean, I guess they're in a spot where they don't necessarily need one, especially with a couple of guys on rookie quarterbacks on rookie deals here. So that's obviously a huge thing in their favor that they won't be able to take advantage of in the future when one of them eventually takes the reins for good. Because that's like one of those Jimmy things where I don't think that they can be in the same quarterback room for more than this year is my guess. I'm just speculating, but I mean I know that they're both signed beyond this year, but or at least I think I don't remember what Purdy's deal is, but yeah.
So Ernie was Mr. Irrelevant, which I means gives him a 4-year min contract. Basically.
So I guess they're both under contract, but I don't know. I get the suspicion that that it would be a weird room if we're still talking about this next year, and they're like both like on the roster, but I guess maybe one of them at that point would have made more of an impression in the past year, and then there would be less to debate. So we'll see, but yeah, I'm excited to see what happens this year.
Sure.
So yeah, any final thoughts? I know we have a little
Final thought. I mean, obviously, I beat this to death. Where like top 4 quarterbacks, Stroud, I love. He'd be number 1. Richardson, the guy with the highest ceiling. Bryce Young, a guy who knows how to play, but we're taking some risks on size. And Will Levis is a guy who I would not put him in the same class as the other 3, and yet he might go ahead of all of them or most of them. So like that's my big.
Okay. All right. So yeah, So what I'll do is I'll post a link to your.
We're disconnected.
Yeah, no problem. I hear you. So yeah, I'll post a link to your rankings here. So if people want to get some insight on your actual because the way you do the rankings is that you're not looking at you're looking at your numbers. You're not looking at what teams they're aligned.
Absolutely not. Like Bijan Robinson would not be my 3rd overall pick in this draft.
Sure. Right. So yeah. But I think it is helpful just to see where you have certain players and maybe where the gaps are with certain positions, certain tiers of certain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certain positions, but yeah, Seth. Once again, thanks for joining. Everyone, thanks for listening. Enjoy the draft, and we'll talk to you all again soon. Take care.
Have a good day.
All right, you too.